Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. It's a big topic. I think everybody wants new customers, right? So hopefully you walk away from today's session with some good information. I'm the bald guy there. My name's Kevin Naughton. I've been doing this for 40 plus years, which means I started when like I was really young, 14 to be exact. I've been actually at this company, Printcom, for 35 years, bought it 6 years ago. You know, I love direct marketing. I mean, I love print, but I really love direct marketing. Part of our mission here is, you know, we believe in serving people. We don't want to just take folks, you know, money from them. We actually want to help them do stuff that that works. I'm happy to have with me today my friend Frank Martin. Frank and I have been working together, partners in crime, for, I don't know, probably 11, 12, 13 years now, doing some good direct mail. He's really a strategy genius, and I kind of focus on high-level execution. I'll let Frank, you know, say a little bit about himself.
Okay, well, Kevin's the bald guy, and I'm the fat guy. And that gorgeous little girl there is my daughter, who lives in Japan and just got married, so I wanted to give her a little plug on the picture there. I've been in the direct marketing industry for over 30 years. I started out as the research director over at R.L. Polk way back in the day when they were compiling their national demographic mailing list called Total List, or now it's Total Source with Epsilon. I left Polk and started my own direct marketing agency and did that for about 17 years. Worked with a lot of major clients like Goodyear and State Farm, Progressive Insurance, AAA, and the likes of that, really working on CRM and direct marketing and using data to drive much more personalized, much more effective direct marketing programs. I sold that agency, and then for the last 5 years, I've been CRM directory in some different retail and travel spaces. I worked at Pet Supplies Plus for several years and created their CRM capabilities for them. And now I've moved over to Silversea Cruises and are building their personalized direct marketing programs for their luxury cruise line. And like the slide says, my passion is really using data to create targeted and highly personalized marketing communications, and prospecting with direct mail and other sources is really my dream and what I really enjoy doing.
And he's good at it. So let's let you take a look at agenda here. Before we do that, there's a couple of housekeeping items I should probably run by you. First of all, GoToWebinar has an ugly little dialog box over there on the right side. On the left side of that box, there's a vertical bar with a little orange arrow. If you click on that orange arrow, you can get rid of that. Now, having said that, if you want to submit any questions, there is a chat function down at the bottom of that big dialog box. If you just chat something or type something in there, we'll get to some questions towards the tail end of the session today. We've got Stephen watching the chat box. He may respond to some of them actually as the presentation goes on. So we are going to take some questions at the end, and we're also recording the session today. So don't worry about recording it. We will send everybody who attends a recording. So the agenda, you know, can direct mail be effective for prospecting? I think everybody wants to know that. Some folks wonder, is it too expensive? If it's going to work, you know, what'll make it really effective? Data, that's a big issue. What makes for an effective list? Then we're going to talk about some of the various aspects, offers and messages, timing. We've got a handful of case studies we'll share with you, mostly some positive ones, one that kind of went awry. Then Frank's going to wrap it up with just some takeaways, and finally some questions. Okay, so let's start with that first question. Really, you know, how does direct mail, you know, stack up as a prospecting tool? I think some marketers look at some of the other channels, in particular some of the digital channels, and question whether direct marketing should be, or direct mail specifically, should be part of the mix. And I just want to make this plain. I'm not a hater on digital channels. We actually utilize a couple digital agencies here ourselves. We use every tool in the tool bag. So, is direct mail an effective tool? Frank, what's your take on that?
Absolutely, it's an effective tool, Kevin. And I've been at this for quite some time. And being both a CRM manager and owning a direct marketing agency, we used all the tools in the toolbox. So we've used direct mail, we use broadcast, we use digital, and all of those things. And our conclusion is that the direct mail is actually a very important part of that toolbox. And there's really some of the reasons why direct mail, we feel, can be extremely effective is that when done right, you're targeting it to high value prospects and you're eliminating current customers from that. And because of that, it's a very private channel in that you can do different offers to different people. Your customers don't really know that you're doing it. Your competitors don't know that you're doing it. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to really test different offers and find out what works for what group of people. The other thing about direct mail, a lot of the products and services that our clients have been selling and providing really need to have a story behind it. And direct mail gives you the capability of telling a compelling story, and that you can't really do in a 15-minute TV ad or a short digital display ad or with a paid search post. And the other thing is that it's measurable and scalable. A lot of the digital stuff is measurable and scalable, but direct mail is really the founder of that, and the tools for making direct mail effective have been around for a long time and are really pretty sophisticated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's move on to the next question here. I guess just kind of, speak to the elephant in the room. There is a perception that direct mail is expensive. I think that, really is based on the outbound cost per thousand, which is certainly higher than some other, mass, channels. So what do you think about direct mail? Is it expensive?
Clearly, when you look at the upfront bill, you say, gosh, direct mail is really expensive. Talking with a lot of CMOs when presenting direct mail, they start to choke going, oh my goodness, I'm spending 70 cents a dollar to send out one of these direct mail pieces, and I can be doing a red plum for 6 cents a piece. And the sticker shock is really there, but I think that it's really important not to focus on the cost per thousand and really focus on the cost per acquisition, or the acquisition cost of those new customers. Because when you do that, direct mail all of a sudden seems very affordable. And what I found is that it's actually one of the most affordable ways to prospect and get new customers. And I created this table based on bringing together many years and many clients together to give a typical range of what the cost per acquisition is. I'm going to give a plug to one of my friends who's a startup here in the Detroit area. Quickly, they have a model. It's a digital thing. It's a contest where customers refer their friends in order to get prizes and things like that. That's been a really successful way to acquire new customers, and it typically has the lowest cost per thousand. So I'm going to give them that little plug. But right on its heels is solo direct mail. Even though it costs more, typically what I've found across different industries, retail, insurance, financial services, in particular, but also some other verticals, is that solo direct mail, the cost is typically $60 to $90 per new customer. And while that seems like a lot, when you compare it to the other things down the list. EDDM, even though it's cheaper, tends to run a little bit more for the cost for acquiring new customers. And part of that reason is that a lot of the response that you're getting from other medium that can't specifically target a prospect, you can't get rid of your customers, you're paying for extra money for just giving offers to your existing customers. So that drives a lot of it up. Shared mail Red Plum typically is we find running in the 100 at the very low end. Typically it's more in the 110, 120, 130 range for acquiring a new customer. And then you get down into digital display, TV, radio, broadcast, paid search, and things like that. And typically the cost per new customer is well over $200. And I know that, so what I want to do is I want to run through a couple examples of how to actually calculate that cost per acquisition, sort of show you why that's the case, that direct mail tends to come in lower. Basically, all of you know this. Cost per acquisition, you take the marketing expense plus the offer expense, and you divide that by the number of new customers, and you get the cost per acquisition or the cost per new customer. The first example, I want to go through a direct mail example. And there's a lot of numbers here, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to run through it anyway. Let's say you do a mailing and you spent $20,000 on it. And the mail piece out the door in home cost about 70 cents. So that means you'd be mailing about 28,571 people. Let's say you're getting a response rate of 2%. In the prospecting solo direct mail that I do, I tend to get higher than 2% because I'm targeting the list a lot more closely and making sure that I have a good offer. I'm typically in the 7% range for a prospecting direct mail, but let's say it's 2%. That means that you'd have 560 people responding and purchasing based on that direct mail piece. Assume that you have 0 customers in that. In reality, you will have some existing customers coming in and using that offer. Either the technology for getting rid of customers is not an exact science, so some of them will be getting the mail piece, and others are pass-alongs from friends and everything else. The offer is $30, so you're spending $17,000 to give that $30 away to the 560 new customers. When you add that all up, the marketing expense of $20,000 plus the offer expense of $17,000, and divide that by the 560 new customers, you see that the cost per acquisition is $66. And that's really right in line with what I typically see with a direct mail campaign. The next example is a shared mail, like a Red Plum. Again, you're spending $20,000, but each one's only 7 cents a piece. If you're a big volume mailer, you can probably get that closer to 5.5, 6 cents, but let's use the 7 cents. That means you can mail out 10 times more pieces than you could with the solo direct mail, in this case, 285,000. Typically, a response rate that you'll get on a Red Plum or shared mail is about 0.5%, which means that you're going to have 1,430 total purchases. Historically, what I've found is at least 90% of those purchases will be from your existing customers. So in terms of new customers, only 10% of those purchases were to new customers, or $143. Because you're sending this piece out to everyone, you can't do the rich offer of $30, so you do a $5 coupon or something much smaller, and your offer cost is $715. When you add all that up and plug it into the formula, you see that the cost per acquisition is $145. So even though the cost per thousand to send it out is much less, the cost per acquisition of new customers is actually significantly higher than the direct mail. The last one I want to go through is a paid search example. And I'm trying to be very generous with this one. I worked with one company recently that was a software as a service company. And when I analyzed their new customer acquisition, they thought they were doing really great with it. They were actually paying over $2,000 for each new customer that they were achieving, which didn't really seem like it was a great thing for them, given that the cost of their product was $22 a month. So they had a really long payback period on that. But in a typical paid search example, again, let's say you're spending $20,000 and you're paying $20 per click. Some clicks are a lot more, some are a lot less. The average for a lot of you is probably around $20. The conversion rate, the number of people, the percent of people that click on the ad that then go on to buy, let's say that that's 10%, that means that you'd have 100 purchasers. Typically what I find in paid search is that a large percentage of those are actually your current customers. Let's say that it's 20% of the people that clicked and purchased were actually your existing customers. That means that you got 80 new customers. Again, your offer was $30 because you thought that you were targeting people that weren't already your customers. And that you plug that into the formula and roll it around, and out comes $288. So that's why you really need to focus on cost per acquisition. And if you do that, you're going to find that some of the tactics are much more effective than others that you would think would be good tactics because they have a low cost per thousand at the front end, but the cost at the back end is really a lot higher than something like direct mail.
So if I could, I want to weigh in on a couple of the examples here on the, just based, sharing some anecdotal information on some campaigns we've participated in. On the targeted direct mail example on the far left, we've actually been able to put together some systemized approaches for people where we've driven that per each cost down like into the 35-cent range, including postage. Which serves to lower that cost per acquisition, significantly. On the shared mail example, we've got a client who has pushed in on EDDM versus Red Plum. Their product and their consumer profile lend itself to that. The EDDM cost all in on postage is right around 23 cents a piece. But they're seeing response rates like in the 4.5% to 6% range. So even though the outbound cost is a little over 3 times higher, the response rates are 8 to 12 times higher. So
yeah, and Kevin, that's typically what I've seen as well, is that the response to an EDDM piece, even though it's a saturation piece, is significantly higher than a Red Plum or something like that.
Yeah, in fact, we've got some franchisees that are like wanting to shift over major quantities of money, from Red Plum into EDDM because it's generating more traffic. It's not for everybody, you've got to have a mass consumer, customer profile to make that work. But just thought I'd throw that in. There's, I guess, one other little story I like to share. I do think people look too hard at outbound cost per thousand, and the analogy I would make is, let's just pretend you were, buying, stocks or mutual funds for your 401k, retirement portfolio. Would you look at what the share price was on the stock and use that as the decision-making criteria? Hey, I'm gonna buy a lot more shares of this. If I buy the stuff that's $4, bucks a share, would I be better off, looking at ROI? And that's really what marketing is, an investment. The ROI is what matters. Anyway, enough of that. We can move on to the next one, right? Okay. So back in the old days, and I say the old days, 10, 15 years ago, the old paradigm was the equation for, direct mail success was 1/3 creative, 1/3 data, and 1/3 the offer. In other words, each one of those factors is, kind of equally important in achieving, direct marketing success. What's your take on that, Frank?
my take is that it's really kind of changed a little bit, and the new take that I've been familiar with and that other people are using is that the list still remains around 30%. The offer message is about 30%, but what's equally as important is the timing of the message. We found that if you're sending something, the right offer to the right person, but they're not in market for the product, you're not going to get response. It's like if you just bought a car and then you got a great deal on a new car, you're not in the market for it at that time, so you're not going to be responding to it. So the timing of the offer is critically important, and then that leaves only about 10% to the creative. And typically this is what we found over the past 15 years or so, that the time of need is critically important, and we could actually send something out on a napkin if it was to the right person with the right offer and message and the right time, and we would get great response. But sending a truly beautiful creative mail piece out to someone that's either the wrong target with a crappy offer or at the wrong time, it's just not going to be an effective piece. So these are the drivers that we found.
I guess I would echo that. You know, I've seen pieces that were really, honestly, very unattractive, and the creative was poor, that pulled really high response rates. You know, because they were sending the right offer to the right person at the right time. So anyway, that's just my kind of 2 cents. So,
yeah.
So I guess
this goes beyond just direct mail, Kevin. I found the same thing with my email marketing, that I can send a plain text email that has targeted to the right person at the right time with the right offer, far outperforms a beautiful email that our creative team has put together that's not as targeted.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, you know, how do you do timing, you know, effectively, you know, like in the prospect realm? I mean, what should you contemplate?
Well, a number of things. Can we talk about the list first?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Only because that's the way that I have the slides organized.
Okay. So list, obviously another, you know, huge area. In fact, we just had a question pop up from the crowd on this one. You know, a lot of money, time, experimentation is invested in finding the right data. You know, what are some of the things you've seen work? You know, what do people, you know, really need to take into account?
Really, they need to take a couple broad things into account. The first is that the list needs to be of people who are qualified to buy. If you're in retail, it means that they live near the store. They meet basic requirements for your product, and that varies depending what the product is. Sometimes it's homeowners, sometimes it's, in the case of Pet Supplies Plus, it's pet owners, their gender. If you're selling women's fashion, then obviously you want to be sending it to women. You may have age considerations, but the first step is that you really need to identify what those basic requirements are and tailor the list to that. The next thing is they need to be able to afford your products. So it's really important to put some income parameters on there, some home ownership, net worth things, and add that to the list so that you can make sure that they can afford it. And then also you want to be targeting potential high value buyers. In the case of Pet Supplies Plus, we weren't targeting just just pet owners, but we looked at who our best customers were, and we were targeting people that own multiple pets, that bought natural food for their animals, for their pets, and really were the kinds of people that wanted to really indulge their pets, and that was a much more responsive list than one that we had tried before that targeted demographics and distance and really didn't focus on all of the basic requirements of pet ownership. The other thing is that it's really important for successful prospecting, at least, is that you send it to people that have been responsible or responsive to other direct mail offers from other companies. And you can do this in a few different ways. Compiled lists have mail responsive indicators on them that they get through a variety of their sources of people that have responded to other direct mail or direct marketing offers. You can use subscriber or donor lists, either as standalone or matching them up to your other lists. But these are people that have already, with other companies, been responsive to direct mail, or you can use co-op lists in combination with that. But this is something that I found to be critically important for successful direct mail prospecting is adding this to it, because as you know, or all of us know, not every person is responsive to every medium out there. Some people are responsive to TV ads, and other people, like myself, use their DVR and fast forward through all of them. Some people are responsive to direct mail and some people aren't. And we have the ability, or you have the ability, to actually identify those people, and your prospecting will be much more successful if you add that into it. And then the last thing that I can't stress too much is you need to focus on quality of lists rather than quantity. All too often people go, how many pieces can I mail? And they try to mail the most. But if let's say there's only 100,000 people that you can identify that are really truly good prospects for a list, even if you can afford to mail 200,000, you really don't want to mail 200,000 you don't want to mail 100,000 really good people and 100,000 marginal or crappy people. You'd be much better off mailing that good 100,000 people twice than using a higher quantity. So I can't really stress that enough, Kevin, is that you need to think about quality over quantity. And I know you hate to hear that because you're a printer and you love quantity.
No, actually, I'm totally cool with that. My take is I want it to work, because if it works, people keep doing it. If it doesn't work, they stop. So, I'm all about doing the right quantity.
Great.
You want to talk about offers here?
Sure.
Okay.
So what makes a good offer? And if I can get this to work, I love this GIF. This is really what your customers are like. Is that dog, in that you want to play ball and it just wants to lie there. Prospects just want to lie there. So a successful offer, the first thing, it has to be really compelling, which means that when they see that offer, it's like, holy crap, I need to go do something about this. I can't believe that this is an offer, something that really motivates them to get off the couch and visit you or buy from you, because there's a lot of inertia out there. The old adage of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you really need to make that offer compelling and stand out. In Pet Supplies Plus, an example of that, we've done mailings in the past where finance gets involved, and they want to have a week offer, let's say a $2 off coupon. That doesn't get anybody off the couch. So it really needs to be compelling. The other thing is that the offer needs to be simple. If there's a lot of fine print to the offer, it's not going to be effective. It needs to be something that's both compelling and really simple to understand. $50 off, $200 off, free something, it has to be something that's very simple. The other thing that a successful offer has is that because it's in direct mail, you want to make it an exclusive offer and tell people that it's exclusive, that not anyone can get this, but you can get this, and only you, or mostly only you. And then also that it's time sensitive. You want some sense of urgency around it. So yeah, it's a great offer, and if you don't get off the couch now, it's going to disappear. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is that you want to minimize freeloaders. And Kevin and I were talking when we were setting all of this up, and he asked me the question, well, what about free offers? Because that seems like it would be really compelling. And what I found, and we've tested this over and over again with a lot of different, mostly retail clients, is that a free offer actually doesn't work as well. And the reason is, when we gave away something for free, we got a lot of people coming in, but a lot of those folks that were taking advantage of the free offer really had no intention of ever becoming a loyal customer. It's like, well, I really don't want to buy from you, but if you're going to give me something away for free, I'll come and get it. Also, anecdotally, in the retail thing, a lot of those free customers seem to be a real pain in the neck, in that they were very demanding. So when we were working with Goodyear, we did a bunch of tests, and what we found was that instead of giving away a free oil change to a prospect, we gave an oil change for $4.70. And it seems like $4.70 seems like a really weird thing, but what we found was that we got about 80% of the number of people, or the number of responses to that, but those responses were a lot more qualified in the sense of they bought something in addition to the oil change. And they had a much higher percentage of those people converted into becoming regular customers. So while a lot of people out there may tell you that a free offer is best, I would actually say that a free offer is not the best thing to have out there, and that something that is still a jaw-dropping offer but requires some skin in the game is actually a much more effective offer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kelly just raised an issue, Frank Kelly Dupree, one of the attendees. The comment that was made is there's also, the follow-up aspect. If, the direct mail is done right and people are going to respond, it might be hard to respond to a gigantic number of requests, or the promotion cost might be high if the offer's too sweet. I remember, I think we worked on you with a car dealer campaign a few years back, an auto service one. There was a guy out in Utah that did like a $9.95 oil change. It wasn't free, but it was still ridiculously cheap. Yeah. And I think he got several hundred responses to that, and just totally buried his service department, and decided not to do direct mail anymore because we get too many customers when we do direct mail.
And what you should have said is, keep doing the direct mail, just don't mail out as much every time, and also send it out when your service bins are empty. But that's sort of beside the point. But yeah, you really want to have the right kind of offer out there. You want it to be compelling, but you don't want it to be stupid as well, so that you lose the shirt.
So, Frank, just kind of a related question. Maybe some of the crowd, isn't in retail, or like, just straight retail. Some of them are dealing with big ticket items. We've got people selling motorsports vehicles and hearing aids, and you yourself, you're working for an upscale cruise line where the customer spends thousands of dollars. What kinds of thoughts do you have on, offers that work in that big ticket space? Really the principles are the same. It still needs to be a compelling offer. And in the cruise space, some of the compelling offers are things like discounted or free airfare. So it's something that really, in the scheme of things, when you're paying $7,000 or $8,000 per person for a cruise, isn't that much money, but it's a compelling offer for that audience.
In the case of motorsports or any of the other big ticket items, as a marketer, you'll know what's compelling for your customers in your industry. But whatever your offer is, it should be something that is such that someone says, "Gosh, this is something that will get me off the couch and get to buying your product," and not something where they look at it and go, "Yeah, I want to buy a snowmobile, but this is for $50 off or something like that," and you're like, I know how much this costs, and this is not really a compelling offer. So whatever you do, it needs to be compelling. And you were talking, Kevin, about some different kinds of offers that may not be big dollars, but like the cruise industry, where they're giving away free airfare or discounted airfare, you might be able to do some other things with gift cards for restaurants or things that aren't directly related to your product, but are still of interest to your target audience.
Sure. So messaging, we kind of bundled offers and messaging to, what are your thoughts here?
Okay. Really, with successful messaging, you have to think about the psychology of the prospects that are out there and the psychology of people. And really, what they're doing is they're weighing in their minds the benefits of switching to you.
Hey, Frank, the audio's cutting out there a little bit.
My audio?
Yeah, you sound good now.
Okay. With the prospects, they're really weighing the benefits of switching versus the fear of switching, because everyone, you can give a compelling offer, but the basic psychology of people is that they're afraid to make changes. So whatever your messaging needs to address both parts of that. So the first thing is you need to talk about the benefits of switching, which are things like your product benefits, your offer, and really talk about why they should be buying from you. The second thing is you need to really address the risks of staying put, which are essentially taking your offer, your benefits and your offer, and reminding people that if they don't switch, they're going to lose out on those things. And then the third thing is you need to make it easy for them to switch. Thinking back some of the old cellular offers of we'll pay for you to, the offer was we'll give you a free phone and pay for you to switch to us, and if you don't like us, we'll pay to switch you back. Things like that make it easier for people to switch. They take away the fears of switching. So some of those are those guarantees. With Pet Supplies Plus and some of our other retailers, I've used personalized maps to the store, which again makes it easier for them to switch because it tells them the exact route that they need to take from their house to your store. And there may be some dedicated service representatives or service that you provide to ease the transition from their old product to the new product. And those are things that you want to talk about in your direct mail campaign as well, so that you address all of those, both the benefits and reasons why you're such a great company, but also address the psychological fear that people have of not wanting to switch. Okay. Make sense?
Sure does. I guess now would be the right time to talk about timing. So, what do you mean by timing? How can you account for it, in a prospecting process?
Yeah, really, time of need is really, really important. And the first thing is you can include lifestyle triggers in your list selections. For instance, new movers can work really well because these lifestyle triggers are things that are making people want to look around for new products, new services. Their life is already changing, so they're more open to change. So new movers, and this is just an example, new movers, new parents. We've had success with people who have just paid off their mortgage. There's also age-based triggers. someone retiring, or their kids starting school, or their kids becoming teenagers, or their last kid leaving the house. These sorts of triggers, lifestyle triggers, can be really successful at identifying people when they're in the mood to make a switch. The other thing that you can use, especially now with multi-channel and digital things, is you can start using some behavioral triggers. And some of those are things like they've downloaded things from the website, they've requested information, or they've entered a contest. Now, while these may not be considered true prospects in that they've already made some contact to you, you really need to think about them as prospects. And if you're a large enough company with enough of these behavioral triggers, direct mail can be a very important complement to the sales process once people do those downloads and things like that, other than just sending them emails. And then the third thing, if you can't do the first two, is just mailing frequency. Your prospect may not be in the market for it this month, but they may be next month or 3 months from now. So frequency is just a really important thing that you can use to find that timing when you don't actually know them. So those are them. So I think what we want to do now, Kevin, is to actually look at some of the mail pieces and talk about them, some actual examples of things that have gone out.
Yeah, let's go ahead if you want to flip up that slide for that EDDM piece.
Sure.
Okay, so kind of alluded this a little bit earlier. 70% of the population owns a pet, so this makes sense for this particular client. Response rates have been really high. Frank, what takes do you have on this piece, kind of looking at it?
Well, given that this is one of the pieces that I was involved with, I think it's great. But really, what this piece and it is very successful for some of our locations, especially the locations that are struggling and that don't have a really high customer penetration. But some of the things that are important here is that the $5 coupon. We've done a lot of testing, and we found that the 5 off any $25 purchase or more actually gives the best ROI for us. We've done a 5 off no minimum, and done 5 off $40, 5 off $30, 10 off $40, 10 off $50, and tried a variety of offers along those lines that would go to the broad market. And the 5 off 25 gives the best ROI and drives in a lot of people. So that's for Pet Supplies Plus and their customers. That's a really good offer. So that's really the hero in all of these direct mail pieces. In terms of the messaging, got to say the messaging is actually kind of poor. There's not a whole lot that you can do on a postcard, but what's important about the messaging is that map up there, because that helps people locate the location, especially the prospects who really don't know where the Pet Supplies Plus store is. It's in a small shopping center most of the time, and most people don't even know that they've driven by it 150 times in the last month.
Okay, do we want to look at the next one?
Sure. This next postcard is one we did at Pet Supplies Plus, and this was sent out to a prospecting list. So this was a solo direct mail. It wasn't an EDDM. The list that was chosen was male responsive people that were multiple pet owners that lived within 3 miles of the store. So it was a very restrictive, highly selective list. We took out all of the current customers, and we did an offer test here where we did a $10 off coupon and a free bag of food. And you would think that the free bag of food would actually outperform, but we found that the $10 off offer actually outperformed the free bag of food, even though the bag of food on average cost $15. Don't know exactly why that happened. We repeated it a number of times, and we found that the $10 off actually worked best. This piece itself got over a 7% response rate and was incredibly successful. The other thing that we really thought was cool and that helped with response was something that you brought to us, Kevin, which are these, I call them their own personal Google map, where every single person, when they got their mail piece, it actually highlighted the route from their house to Pet Supplies Plus. And we tested this with other mail pieces, and versus a static map, got significantly higher response. And we considered this a really successful prospecting piece.
Yeah, so I'm not really going to go into how we do that today. I'll just say if that's interesting to you, reach out to us. It's really pretty easy to do. A little bit of cost associated with it, but it's pretty easy. Look at the next one. So we wanted to share this campaign, and I would say if you looked at this on the surface, this was for a home security firm. You know, I think the creative is pretty decent. We had a model performed on the customer database, and really, you know, what it pointed out was that the high value prospects for this particular company were people that had just moved into a home in the last, 3 months. Because I guess that's when most people have an alarm system installed, is when they're moving in. I don't want to give away, the rest of the farm because, we got an NDA going on this, but we were kind of excluded from chasing that crowd. So we looked at a couple other lesser segments, modeled groups. The one on the left, the creative was aimed at was vacationers. It makes sense. People that are gone from home would definitely be interested in having a security system. And then the creative on the right reflected kind of, two related audiences. It was couples. The one was couples with young children. The other one was retired couples, probably because they're traveling, or maybe they live in an area where they don't feel incredibly safe. And this one didn't perform real well, and I think it really was data related. Any takes on that, Frank?
I think it's two things. One, I think it's data related. The other is, given this product, I would actually want to test a more elaborate direct mail piece, either an envelope or a self mailer or something where they could do a better job of telling the story. I think a postcard's really limited, and this is one of those products where you really want to be able to tell that story, stress your benefits, stress the risks of not signing up for a security system, and also reassure people that it's really easy to get into, and that they will be much safer if they have it versus not. And I think that a postcard really isn't. My gut says that this really isn't the best way to do prospecting for this particular product. That they should really use a format where they can tell a better story and make their offer a lot more prominent.
Fair enough. Okay, just a couple other quick examples, and this might speak to those of you that are selling the bigger ticket stuff. Complex sale, could be B2B or B2C. We've seen a couple of programs for people where really the offer is intended to get them into the funnel more than actually close the sale. The first one was a test drive program for one of the automotive manufacturers. There were a little over 300,000 pieces mailed, I think 330,000. They were offered a gift card, their choice of one of several gift cards to come into the dealership and do the test drive. And my recollection was that they had gotten like 3,500 plus test drives in the first 3 weeks of the campaign, which is a little over 1% response. And they'd actually closed just under 1,000 sales. The number was in the high 900s. So, if you look at that from a average vehicle cost standpoint, I mean, the ROI is astronomical. If you look at it just from a margin standpoint, let's just pretend they're making a couple $1,000s a vehicle. We're privy to that data. 950 sales at, 950 sales, a couple thousand, that's like 19 million in sales, for a spend probably in the, 160,000 range. So the ROI was really, really high. The second one, I saw several packages tested for this was a personal item, a big ticket item used by seniors, rolled out 4 or 5 different creative packages. Some had die cutting, some had letters with buck slips, some had letters with brochures. So the creative options really didn't create any lift. The one that really performed the best was they gave them a $20 off restaurant.com gift certificate or gift card for coming in. And I'm not sure how many of you ever been to the DMA or looked into these firms, but there's actually kind of a cottage industry out there that sells premiums at discounted prices. So like, restaurant.com, as for instance, you can, offer offers. Entertainment does the same thing. You can offer offers to people for like literally a few bucks, 1,000, and then, you only pay for the redemptions. So rather than, paying a ton of money, it's a little bit on the front end and you pay for your live redemptions. Saw the same thing used in like a Blue Cross Blue Shield and like a AAA program where they're trying to sign up members where a restaurant gift card was offered. So those are just a couple other anecdotes to get people in the funnel on bigger ticket sales. Anything you want to add there, Frank?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Steve's yelling uncle at me because we got some questions piled up and we're running short on time here, so I better shut up and keep moving. Let's talk about some takeaways, just some quick takeaways here, Frank.
Okay. Sort of the key takeaways are be laser focused on cost per acquisition. Don't focus on the cost per thousand out the door, but really look at cost per acquisition as your key metric for success. Put the most effort into the list, offer, and messaging instead of the creative. What I find is that most people spend their time on creative, put it into the other things. And really quality over quantity. It's better to send fewer great pieces to the right people than a lot of crappy pieces to bad people. And if you do that, then instead of the dog lying down, you'll have a happy dog.
So Steve, if you're there, do you want to jump in and fire off some of these questions that have come out of the audience, and Frank or I'll field them. Frank, you get first shot at them.
Yeah, so first question came from Mike pretty early on with regards to data. His question was, how much of a lift in direct mail response can a marketer expect using targeted data or predictive models?
Typically what I've found, if you're using true predictive models, that you're going to get about a 30 to 60% lift in overall response. It might be higher than that, depending on how finely you want to dice it, but you'll definitely be able to get at least 50 or 60, and you might be able to get double response. If the model is what they call a profiling model, where they just take your customers and match it up against a compiled file and do a model, you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of lift off of that. I would suspect maybe 5% to 10% off of that. The profile models, in my experience, having built several thousand of them, really don't work that well.
Good. Thanks, Frank. Next question came from Chris. Asked if there were any case studies you were aware of for direct mail in business-to-business applications. Seems to be a lot of info out there for B2C. Just wondered if you were aware of any resources for B2B.
There's a lot of B2B case studies out there. It's a different kind of animal in that the key thing in B2B is that you need to get past the gatekeeper. And that gatekeeper is typically either the mailroom or some low-level functionary. So A lot of the successful B2B campaigns either are the oversized postcards, which they just pass along. For the higher value B2B, the general rule of thumb is that lumpy mail tends to work, or something that will get delivered to the end executive. You have a lot of experience with B2B, Kevin. Do you have any ideas?
Sure. It's really going to depend on the client, how much brand awareness they've got. I guess that, is somewhat of an obstacle. If the company like us doing the marketing isn't necessarily a household name, some repetition is going to be required. Relevance is a principle. We find that if we do a lot of research on the company we're targeting and weave that into some of the correspondence, so that people can tell, hey, these people kind of, know where we're coming from, that helps. And then I would kind of echo the lumpy mail, or the mail that doesn't necessarily look like ad mail type approach, big envelopes, handwritten addresses, stamps, send stuff in via, UPS, or send stuff in boxes, that sort of thing. And we're talking bigger complex sales with, high value sales. The other thing that works is vertical market targeting, where you can, go to trade shows and that sort of thing. And the mail is to people you're meeting at trade shows, you're following up on leads, that sort of thing.
Cool. All right, guys, we got one more question, and we actually are bucking up against time here. So one piece of information here, this is just anecdotal. I guess we had a attendee actually receive the home security piece we talked about. I guess this person was told while in the store they couldn't redeem the coupon unless they gave them email info. So they just packed their bags and left, and said there were way too many strings attached, and actually ended up driving her away. So anyway, that's not really a question, just anecdotal info. Our final question, and if you guys feel like commenting on that, please feel free. But our last question here is, how do we feel about multi-touch campaigns with direct mail, i.e., email, direct mail, landing pages, pearls, and etc.?
We're all for that. I found that doing coordinating email and direct mail at the same time dramatically increases the overall response. That it's definitely the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
And I would wholeheartedly echo that. I've seen plenty of data that supports the fact that direct mail and email work together, achieve a higher result than either tactic used individually. In fact, higher than the sum of the two used individually. We've actually seen some stuff on cadences that's pretty interesting too. Now, like in the B2B realm, we've seen, or not even B2B, high ticket B2C, where the direct mail went in first and then email came second. And it worked better than vice versa, email first, direct mail second. So yeah, multi-touch works without a doubt. Anything else?
Nope, that's it on the questions, guys.
Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody, today. Thanks, Frank. Man, I always learn stuff when I talk to you. Hope this is helpful, everybody. If you want to reach out, if you've got any further questions or want some help, hey, we do printing and direct mail, lots of it over here. We'd love to talk with you. Once again, thanks for coming and have a great day. Bye now.